Hello, my name is Gordon Wood. I am the commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart in Medford, Oregon. I am here with Frank Hernandez on Tell Your Story. Today is July 9th, 2011. Hello, Frank.
Hi, how you doing, Gordon?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Great, great.
Oh, wonderful. I want to thank you so much for the service to your country, to our country, and allowing me to come into your home and to get your story.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. What branch of the service did you join?
I was in the infantry. Yeah, army. In the army.
In the Army.
And in the infantry, yes.
Okay. How old were you when you joined?
I was 18 years old.
18.
Just barely 18.
Were you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just kind of squeezing a little bit.
Yeah.
What year did you join?
1943.
Okay. And how long were you in the Army?
I was in there 2 years.
2 years.
Yes.
Well, what we're going to do right now, we're going to kind of break off from what we usually do. And Frank has such an interesting childhood. We're going to go back to when he was a child, because his story of then is a story beside itself that nobody will really believe. So, Frank, would you just like to tell me what happened when you were, 4 years old, or what happened back when?
The most interesting story, I think, is when I was 8 years old. I was lived in San Diego, where I was born, and I was in the third grade in school, and it was 1932, and I was during the Depression, and my dad was working as a carpenter in San Diego, but the people from the Dust Bowl, from Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, they were coming to California and taking jobs for $1 a day.
$1 a day?
Yes. And they let my dad go. He said, well, we don't need you no more. He was a carpenter. So one of my uncles in Mexico told him that he didn't have to be in bread lines, that he could go to Mexico, central Mexico, and work for him. So there was a program of the deportation program, and there were so many Mexican Americans signing up for the deportation because there was no problems in Mexico. There was everybody was working, as far as I know. So anyway, we went to we got in. The government gave us the transportation. They even sent our furniture and everything to central Mexico.
They did?
Yeah.
The United States did?
Yes, they had ships in California. And right there in the harbor of San Diego, there was the biggest ship. And there were just packs of people getting into it. It was going to Mexico. Yeah. So we got on that ship there. And none of us wanted to go. We were all against it. My sisters were even crying because we were going to Mexico. And my dad was insisting, that we'd be better off down there. So we did, made it to Mexico. And then my dad started working for my uncle. Later on, my dad started drinking, and he wasn't really, according to my uncle, he wasn't really tending the business the way he should have. It was corn. They used to have corn meals, and they would they would take the corn cob, and that was my dad's job, is to grind the corn cob for feeding the cows, So anyway, that's what he was doing, and we had a large house, and we even had cows in the back there and all that there. I mean, we were pretty well set. Then later on, as time went by, my dad started drinking, and arguing and fighting with my uncle. My uncle says, "You keep drinking, I'm going to throw you out." So later on, it just happened. He threw us out. So my dad, we rented a house, and my dad started a carpentry, a cabinet shop, for building furniture, and in this house, yeah. And then it so happens that I was not going to school, and because the government that came in that year, or even before, I don't know when, but they were socialist government, and they didn't want the church to have so much influence on the people, because I say 90% of the people were Catholics, you know, and believing in God, you know. So they were fighting the government, and they killed about 8 priests that I know of, you know.
Well, they did.
So then the people took all the kids out of school. They closed the schools. So I couldn't go to school no more. So I started helping my dad, you know, and I started working in there. My dad had me all hand tools. We didn't have no power tools. We had hand tools. So I started, you know, cutting long boards, you know, all by hand, you know, from one end to the other.
Wow.
Yeah, and planing them and so on, you know. So my dad said, "Well, I can't give you an education, but I can give you a trade, you know, and maybe that'll get you someplace."
Right.
So anyway, that went on, and then when I grew up, I was 16 years of age. I ran away from home.
Oh, you did?
Yes. I met 2 fellows there in Mexico that said that they were going to the United States, and that they were going to take the freight train at night. So I told my sister, I said, "I'm going to go with these fellows on the freight train, and don't tell anybody until after I'm gone. You can tell them what happened to me, you know, because all of a sudden I'm not going to be around." See?
Right.
And that's what happened. So we took that train.
So what did you do? Was it when
And,
the
we
train
went-
stopped?
Yeah, we were on that freight train, you know, hiding. And then
Was it
when,
in a box car?
yeah,
or-
in between, you know. And when the train took off, you know, we would run. We would be way out, and then before it went too fast, you know, we'd run alongside and we hang on to it, you know, and then we hide someplace in it.
Oh, then you pull
In
yourself
between,
up
yeah.
and
Right. So then and the next day, we were in another city, and these 2 fellows said, "Okay, no, look, we're going to go on the opposite side of the track, and you stay on this side of the track, you know, and when the train takes off, you know, we'll be waiting in here, and before it goes too fast, and we're going to run and catch it, see?" So we did, you know, but the conductor, he saw me. So he came over, you know. Those conductors, they walk on the top, you know, of the train, and they come over and threw me off. So then, but then what I saw was that the train, the track would go straight to towards El Paso, towards Texas, Juarez. And then there was another track, and then the track turned that went to towards Monterrey to Gulf of Mexico, you know, that way. So here, these 2 guys, they took off when that train went around, you know. So I stayed there, and the next day I slept out there in the open, you know. And the next day,
now you're sleeping on the ground. You didn't get
sleeping
on
the ground.
You didn't get on the train.
Yes.
Yeah, because he caught you.
And then, so those, I have no more friends, you know, I'm by myself. So the next day I waited for the train though. And I knew how to get the train because they had these great big water tanks, you know, that the train used to stop there to get water,
Oh, okay.
you know. And we go beyond that, so many yards or feet. and wait for the train to take off. And
Oh,
before
okay.
it got too fast,
So it's picking, it gets water,
yeah,
and then it takes
yeah,
off,
and
and
then
as
takes
it's
off
picking
again.
up speed,
and then when it takes off, you run and catch it and jump in there. So I kept doing that, and there were times when I slept in one state, that I passed, and I was, thrown off at times and went out there.
you got caught a
I-
couple times?
Yes, I would go to the uh, to the guys that were working on the track,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they would give me sandwiches,
Oh, they'd feed you?
They feed me, They share their food with me. Yeah.
Really?
So that's how I got along, and I kept on going. But in this one state, later on, years later, I found out that was uh, the state with the, what's the name of uh, those animals, that on the ground, they bite you, they're deadly,
With the rattlesnake?
Huh?
Rattlesnakes?
No, they're not rattlesnakes. They're small ones, but it's that
Oh,
big.
scorpions?
Scorpions. Yeah, that's the state of the scorpions, The state of the scorpions. I was sleeping out there on the ground.
There's some big ones too.
Big ones,
Did you
Yeah.
see any?
Yeah, because they're deadly scorpions, In some places, they're not. They're just, they're just common scorpions in some places. But in that state, yeah, they used to have. I read later they go into a bar, and two guys would put their hands on the table and they put scorpions, and they bet or something, I don't know what they did, but they would dare the scorpions to come over and get them, something like that. There's some game that they did, with those scorpions.
Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
Did you ever go in and watch them do it?
No,
No, you just heard about it.
I just read about it.
Oh, you read about it? Whoa,
Yeah.
I don't think I want to do that.
And then later on, I got to another state, and in the state of Chihuahua, and there was a fellow that I was on a highway, and there was a fellow that picked me up, a young boy with a pickup with some stuff in it, and he said that his father had a big commercial business, and warehouse, and so then I told him where I was going towards El Paso, Juarez, because I had an uncle in Juarez. That uncle, he had a lot of property. He had a ranch where he grew cotton,
Oh,
And I figured, once I get there, I'll be okay. So with my uncle, so I went there. And when this fellow, they gave me the ride, a young boy, gave me a ride to Juarez, which took maybe 6 hours or so. Then when I got off, he gave me a bill of 5 pesos, which was pretty good, in those
Wow.
days. Yeah, and so I found my uncle's place, so I got there. And then my uncle took me out to his farm where the cotton pickers were working, And he says, okay, you can pick cotton, So they gave me a big long bag, about 10 feet long. You put it between your legs and you tie it around your waist. And you go around picking the cotton, putting it in that bag, But when getting that cotton is very hard, because
is it?
got spiny, it's just
Is it? I've never picked cotton. So
yeah. If you don't know,
it's
You have-
spiny. when
it's a
you-
certain way of doing it, But if you don't know, Well, I went at the end of the day, I had the bag, full. I thought, So when I got there, the foreman on the job, he put his foot in the bag and he kept pressing it down, and then he come to about that much, He says, "Look at what your neighbor did. Your nephew." He says, "He didn't pick anything, hardly. You showed him." and he's not a cotton picker, that's for sure. So,
I'm not a cotton picker.
so I said, okay. So I went and I, what I did, I sent, I called my mom and told her, to send me my birth certificate so that I could cross the border. And so this is just right at the border. So when I waited for so I went downtown and they were building, they're doing construction in a building. I went in there and I asked the foreman, if he could give me a job. And he saw me, he's 16-year-old. He said, well, what do you know about carpenter? I said, well, why don't you try me? Try you? And he kind of laughed. I said, try me. So, okay, he says, I'll give you a try. So he put me doing first trimming the windows and then doing the wooden floor, So, man, I was really doing good. And he said, hey, God, you're pretty good. Yeah. And I said, in Spanish they say, you're a woodpecker, is a carpenter bird, So when I told him, that I was a carpenter, he says, are you just, in Spanish, he says, are you just a woodpecker? Or are you just really a carpenter?
Right.
So
Oh,
I said,
no.
try me out. So he tried me,
And there
I
you
worked
go.
there 2 weeks, and when I had enough money, I took off. I told my uncle, I was leaving. Because my uncle was very rich, but he was a tightwad,
Oh, was he?
I mean,
Okay.
he was just, that's how he got rich, by
Right.
being.
That'd be in Taiwan. Now, did you get your birth certificate?
And I got my birth certificate and I crossed the border, So
Now, did you have any problems
yeah,
crossing
no, I
the
didn't.
border?
Once I crossed the border, and there was there was a fellow that said on the other side of the border, and he says, "Hey kid, come here." He says, "You know what? I came to work here and I forgot my lunch. If you wanna, would you mind going back there and getting it? I'll pay you." I says, okay, I'll do that, So I went back across the border and got he told me where to get his lunch, and I got his lunch and brought it back. And I brought it to him, and he said he was going to California. So then I told him, well, that's where I'm going too. So he says, and I'll tell you how to get there. In those days, there was a travel agency, and you go to the travel agency and you said you were going to a certain place, and somebody who was driving that way, and he was alone, driving alone, he would stop at that place and pick up people that wanted to go that
really?
way, and pay for the gasoline,
No kidding.
So then you pay for the gasoline, they bring you, to
Well, that's a good deal.
So that was pretty good. So they brought me to San Francisco, and then I often wonder, thinking back, I wonder if that bag was really his lunch, or maybe it was something else, And
You
I
never
don't
looked
know.
in it to
Maybe.
see what was in there.
Could have been, could have been anything, narcotics or whatever,
Right.
So anyway, from San Francisco, the guy, he tried to, when I got there, I went into to a motel or a hotel or whatever, I don't know, I can't remember. But anyway, he tried to get fresh with me at night, he tried to grab me, and I was fighting him. I fought him off, and then when he fell asleep, I went in the nightstand. He had a bills, and I took the bill, and I went to the Greyhound the next day, and I told him San Diego, and I got the bus to San Diego with his money, and I got to San Diego. My grandma was glad to see me, and she says, I'm gonna take you to get a job. Oh, great, So she took me first to the Goodwill and got me some clothes to the Goodwill. The next morning, she told me where to go. It was the, what was it? uh, the tuna place, you know, where they bring in the tuna and the can it, you know.
Okay.
And it has a famous name too. Something.
Packing houses or something like that.
And anyway, I started working in there, you know. Well, first of all, in the morning I went there and I asked, and there were people who were waiting, you know, to get a job there. And about maybe half a dozen people or so, you know, so he picked out you, and you. Okay, come on, work, you know. So then he didn't pick me, you know. So next morning I go back in there. Again, I'm standing out there. And he picked out another, and I says, hey, Mrs., how about me? And he says, you know, I told you yesterday that I didn't have a job for you. I says, yeah, but that was yesterday. And he said, okay, you're hired. So he gave me a job, and I was bringing the empty cans on a little trolley, you know, to the ladies that were filling the tuna cans, you know. So I did that for a while, you know. So
Wow.
then I had a brother there that moved to. He was working in San Diego, my La Jolla, in a very elegant restaurant, you know, continental type restaurant. And then someone told him, you know, that if he went to Tijuana across the border, that he could make more money because the tourists were going down there for the racetrack, the horse racetrack, that they spend a lot of money down there, you know, and give big tips, and you make more money down there, and you live for half of that amount because it's cheaper. Everything was cheaper in the Mexican border.
Right.
In fact, that was the reason that there was so much traffic going down there, because people would go down there and buy their meat, buy their clothes, buy all kinds of things, especially when the war broke out. You know, that all the rationing, and you couldn't get this and you couldn't get that.
Oh.
All the people going to Mexico and buying stuff, you know.
Thought about that.
Well, he had, my brother first started working there at Caesar's restaurant, and that's where they developed Caesar salad, the dressing.
Really?
Yeah. And
Wow.
and then he was doing very good, and then when with another fellow that worked there, they decided that they were going to open their own restaurant. So my brother opened his own restaurant with this fellow.
Wow.
And later on, he bought the fellow out, and he was, and then by that time, I was working as a busboy, and I came to work in Hollywood too, because I was working in San Diego as a busboy in a very elegant place, and then some guy there says, you know, if we go to Hollywood, right now they're hiring in all those places because they took everybody in the service, you know, and right after the 41, you know, and early, you know, 41 or before, 1940.
Uh-huh.
So we went down there and we got a job at first at Aerocara Theater. It was a very famous place in Hollywood. Sunset and what is it? The
Highland or?
Sunset, and where all the studios were, the radio studios were, you know, NBC and CBS and so on. And then 2 blocks up was the Palladium, and that was my thing. Dancing was my thing.
Was it?
Yeah, because see, when I was in Mexico with my 4 sisters, and they wanted to go to a Sunday dance, and my dad says, okay, you can go to the dance, but you take Frank with you because he's going to keep his eye on you. So I go there, and then when somebody didn't take them out to dance, they grabbed me, you know, and I was only about 14, you know. So I started dancing with them, and pretty good. I got pretty good.
Wow.
So
Did you get with Lawrence Welk?
yeah,
there
in
and all?
San Diego, I go to the places where they have dance contests, you know, and enter in the dance contest.
Did you ever win?
Oh yeah, sometimes yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
So
Wow.
anyway, then I quit Harold Carroll's Theater and went back to San Diego. I was looking for a job as a carpenter because that's what I did, you know. And somebody told me that no, they were hiring at the at the shipyards. They were building the concrete chips and just outside of San Diego, Chula Vista. So I went there, and they were, you know, and they were building these concrete chips. They were decoy chips, you know. They were concrete, and they tested them outside with some instruments, and when they had, the cement had like pores, you know, they find out where it had pores, that the water, you know, would go in, you know. They break it out, and then I make a wooden form, you know, and they filled it with and cement, you know, and patch up the chip with cement.
Well,
I was
you know,
getting pretty
the
good, but
government
then they called me and they wanted my draft card because I told them I was 18 and I wasn't. I was only 17.
Wow, now was this those concrete ships now?
Yeah,
Was that, they wouldn't float?
yeah. Oh yeah, they would float. They would go out and they go out and way out and
Well, they did.
yeah, they go all the way to all the way wherever the water was, you know.
How
the
thick was?
Pacific. Yeah, no concrete. There were decoys. They sent them out, you know, and draw out the enemy.